So we are so grateful to be here with you on this Thursday. And of course, we have our infamous and delightful Chef Reggie. He is going to whip up something that is healthy and tasteful. If you would like this recipe, I'm going to pin it in the chat. I also will have our marketing coordinator. I believe she already emailed the recipe to all of you. It's also has been on our social media, but I'll definitely include it in this chat. At the end of our presentation, this recording will be available within 48 hours on our YouTube channel, along with all of our other recordings from past Wow Wednesdays. They are on our YouTube. So if you have questions or comments, please put those in the chat. Reggie will answer those as he goes along, and we will also check the chat at the end to make sure we caught all of your questions. So without further ado, we will start our Wow Wednesday with Chef Reggie. All right, Chef, take it away.
Thank you so much. I hope everybody can see both screens that I have going on. I want to be able to talk to you and all
It's
that.
hard to hear you, Reggie. Can't hear you.
Is that better?
Much better.
Uh-oh. All right. Can everybody hear me just fine? Yes? Okay, cool. So, welcome once again to another Wild Wednesday. I am Chef Reginald Massey. I am the...
Reggie, we can't hear you. I'm sorry. It's like you're distant.
I sound real distant.
Yes.
All right.
Unless it's me. Can others hear Chef Reggie? Place in the chat whether or not you can hear him. Okay, I heard no. Thank you, AJ.
Interesting.
Barbara.
I'm trying to keep it from echo.
Okay.
Check.
Okay, there's an echo, but it's a little better.
Check.
Okay, that's better. We don't hear the echo.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. Thank you.
All right. Still echoing a little bit. Okay, so once again, my name is Chef Reginald Massey. I am the owner of Let It Marinate Catering Service, and today we will be making butternut squash 3 ways. Now, anybody know about butternut squash? It's a winter squash that comes around close to the end of the year, but nowadays you can find it pretty much year round. I still hear it echo.
It's not too bad on our end.
Not too bad? Okay.
No.
So the 3 different ways we're going to make it today, we're going to actually do spears, we're going to do a mash, and then we're going to do it as dice. Now, like I was saying, butternut squash come in a few different sizes. For the most part, you see them in these 2. So very large one and then more of a medium size to a small. They do come a little bit smaller, more of a baby size. Some of the ingredients that we'll be using today would be shallots, a little bit of thyme, some maple syrup, all natural organic maple syrup. Now, this is one of my favorite ones. This is actually a ghost pepper maple syrup, which is going to give it a little spice. We're going to have salt and pepper, olive oil. Now, to get started, what we're going to do is we're going to cut up our butternut squash. Now the thing is, when it comes to a butternut squash, this would be similar to the thickness of a pumpkin. So you got to be careful when you start cutting these. You cannot just split it straight like this on one go. Just for safety reasons, you're gonna want to cut here, slide through, turn it around, cut here, slide through, open right up. I'm gonna show you exactly what I'm talking about. The core on it right here is pretty thick. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna take my chef knife, and all I did was kind of like just tap it into it. You see how it's sitting in it? And I just snap back a little bit, turn it around, and it comes right off. Show you again. Sitting in, turn it around. Right off. Now, because this one was a little bit bigger, it took a few more turns on it. Now, like I was saying, what you want to do is you want to go in halfway, straight down. From that, just bring your knife straight down. Slide it out. Turn it around, straight down. And then from that, it should be split almost all the way through. And that's what the inside of a butternut squash look like. Now, butternut squash, it has, it's high in vitamin C. It helps with fighting cancer, actually weight loss, and other things as well. Now, as far as the seeds go, these can be discarded, or they can. I like to actually toast them off and use them later on in other dishes or just as a snack. So what I do is just use a spoon. And all of them come out pretty easy. So what I'm going to do with this is nothing but a simple, all I have is a simple bowl. I'm going to put these in here. I'm going to pour a little water, just as regular, just tap water from the sink. And just move it around a little bit just to separate it from the inside pit. Everybody can see that? With it sitting in water like this, they pretty much come off on their own. Take a strainer, and I'm going to remove the little pit that was on the inside, all the stuff that we pulled out. Now, it's going to feel a little funny in your hand, but if you ever carved a pumpkin or anything like that, it's that same feel. If it's a little bit of the pit left in it, it's fine. I'm going to discard this. And what you have right here are the butternut squash seeds. I'm going to let them sit here for a moment and just like drain a little bit more to get any extra moisture out of them while we go back to the butternut squash. Now, with the spears, I'm going to flip it over just like that. And once again, I'm going to cut it in half. Easiest way, halfway through. Split, turn it around. Half. Now from that, what I want to do is actually split it again into quarters. So once again, split, turn around. I do it from the back side because if I do it from the front side, if you look at the angle of it, where is it at? Okay. If you look at the angle of it, it's a curve right here. So what happens is if I try to cut it this way, a lot of times it will actually break. So what I like to do is actually just turn it upside down. But keeping the same process where I'm just going halfway in on one side. So now we have spears right here. I have a regular just oven baking pan. I use parchment paper. I know the recipe called for aluminum foil, but a lot of times I like to use parchment paper, especially if I have it available. So I'm gonna put a little oil at the bottom. This is olive oil, not extra virgin. This is just regular olive oil. I'm gonna lay it right here. Right, we're gonna put that to the side. Now with the other half, I'm just gonna cut it in half, just like this. All right, because what's gonna happen with this one, we're gonna actually make this into mash. And the thing is, the reason I cut it in half is because of the thickness of it. With this one being hollow, this one's gonna cook a lot faster than this would. So this way I can actually control how long each one of them cook without actually keeping them in there for the same amount of time. I'm gonna hit it with a little bit of olive oil once again. Salt and pepper. Now what I've done is actually made a mixture of salt and pepper where it's 2-to-1, so it's 2 parts pepper, 1 part salt. I'm gonna add this to the same tray with my spears. I'm gonna oil my spears up. Let's massage it just a little bit into the sides. What's gonna happen is with these, they're gonna actually crisp up on the sides, just around these edges right here. There's gonna be a nice little brown crust on it. Salt and pepper. Now the recipe said that the time on this is 1.5 hours. Now the thing is, it depends on how many you're cooking at the time on how long it will be. But I mean, for me, it will probably take about 40 minutes total for the size that we have it right now. So I'm gonna put these to the side. We already preheated our oven. And we're gonna make one more before we actually put them into the oven. Now this one is actually gonna be diced. Now the thing is, when it comes down to peeling, because this one we're actually gonna peel first. There's 2 different types of peelers that you'll see a lot of times. This one's more like an old-fashioned one. We use these more for potatoes, but for a thicker cut of rind or something like that, we try to find one that's more heavy and industrial. Okay, so you might have one of these in the house. This is great for cutting pumpkin, butternut squash, anything with a hard rind on it or skin. I'll show you the difference. See how that little one, just a little bit came off of that, but with this one, comes off a little bit strong. It gets right into the meat itself. A little bit easier to control. I've had plenty of times where I've used the other one and I've actually broken these. And the thing about butternut squash you can treat as a potato when it's being versatile, where it could be mashed, it could be diced, it could be fried, baked, sauteed, even grilled. Clean that up. Okay, cool. Get rid of that. Now we're going to start with the same step as before. Halfway through. Turn it around. Halfway through again. Because I'm not saving the seeds on this one, I'm trying to trash it. All right, I'm going to trim the edge. Now, from this, there's a few different ways you can cut it. You can actually cut here. So now you just have this whole full surface to work with. Now with the one that had the pit that has it hollow on the inside, flip it upside down, slice it one time in the middle. We're going to do it almost like we was doing with the spears. Cut it in half. And depending on the size that you actually want them to be diced, you can cut them into thirds, cut them into halves, cut them into quarters. It just depends on the size that you're looking for. I'm looking for about a medium dice on these. And we're gonna do the same thing where we're gonna start it out with salt and pepper, olive oil. We're gonna throw it straight into the oven and let it go for about a good 20 minutes. From that, what we're gonna actually do is we're gonna check it just to see if it's starting to caramelize a little bit because of the natural sugars that's found in everything. That's what actually makes it brown. And from that, we're gonna figure out exactly how much longer we're gonna need to go with it. Sometimes we can go a little bit longer, depends on the thickness that you're actually cutting it. Sometimes it goes a little bit shorter of time. So with these, I'm going to actually make these a little bit smaller. I'm going to say this one. If you notice, I'm keeping control of my knife, keeping my hand at the top just to make sure I get enough pressure to cut through, but keeping all my fingers out of the way as well. When it comes down to making the strips to make them into dice, I'm tucking back my fingers. We call this a bear claw, where we keep the knife actually rubbed against the knuckles and not hitting each finger. Because I know we all have had those moments where we actually cut ourselves, not paying attention, or just moving a little bit too fast. So that's why we use that bear claw to actually cut with. Keeping everything lined up together. All right. So what I'm going to do is grab my bowl. Just because they're smaller, I'm going to use a bowl to actually toss them all together. A little bit of olive oil. Pinch of salt and pepper. And what I'm doing is I'm actually going to cook them all on the same pan. Well, the two diced ones on the same pan, but I'm keeping them separate so that way I know that the smaller ones are going to cook faster than the larger ones, so that way I can actually pull these out when they're done while the other ones are still cooking. All right, so what I want to do is spread them out. Okay, from this, I'm going to put it in a preheated oven at 400 degrees, and we're going to start it out for about 20 minutes. I'm going to actually look at these probably after a good 15, the smaller dice, and then these at 20 to see where we at. Meanwhile, while that's in the oven, what we have here is some thyme. Now, when it comes down to butternut squash goes well with thyme, rosemary, even mint. It adds a herb and a freshness to it. Best way to actually clean thyme is to take the sprig, hold on to the pinch at the end, and what you're gonna do is just pull. Because all you want is the leaves that's actually on it. If there's a few little stems in it, it's fine because these are the smaller ones. They are a little bit tenderer than the large stem itself. This right here is what you do not want in it. It's going to be like eating a stick. If you ever had any dry herbs like a thyme or a rosemary and you didn't let it cook long enough in a dish or something like that and it had a bite or you felt something sticky in the mouth, that's what it was. So we'll take a little bit more. And what we're going to do, this is halfway through, we're going to add the thyme and shallots to it with a little bit of maple syrup. Maple syrup is going to actually caramelize it while adding a natural sweet, bringing out the natural sweetness within the butternut squash itself. Now, depending on you and your preference, you can keep them like this. I'm going to actually chop them up a little bit finer, just so they spread more evenly. And as you see, as I'm chopping these herbs, I'm keeping my fingers out of the way. I have my hand supporting the tip and the handle of the knife and just rocking back and forth with it. Bringing it back together. You'll use the same step if you was using rosemary. I actually have some mint that I'm going to actually show you a different way of actually using it. And we're going to do something that's called chiffonade. Chiffonade is another type of cut on herbs. You find it more on either mint or basil. But if you ever been to a restaurant or seen something on TV where they actually take the herbs, put them together, roll them up, and then slice it into little small ribbons, that's what chiffonade is. So we're gonna lay this to the side. My shallot. Shallot is similar to an onion. It's a tad bit sweeter. And they grow in clusters almost like garlic does. Shallots normally come in a purplish or a white color. They look similar to something, if you ever seen a pearl onion. Those are the smaller onions. Only difference is these are more of a oval or oblong shape. But I'm going to treat it just like I would with an onion. So one of two ways of actually dicing it or slicing it. Once again, using that same method of moving my fingers out the way. And the thing about shallots have that almost same feel of an onion with a hint of garlic as well. But if you don't have any shallots, an onion will work just as well. So that's my slice. As far as dice, I know we've went over this before with onions dicing the easy way. I'm going to cut up to right here. I'm not going to cut all the way through. I'm going to cut probably about 3/4 of the way through and follow the natural lines that are found in the shallots or onion. Then I'm going to turn my knife and I'm going to make a slit. Go under that, make another slit. And then from that, I'm just going to slice it like I was doing just a minute ago. And that's how I'm going to get my dice. So that's a little trick right there for you. All right. Now, this is nothing but mint. You can find this pretty much anywhere. Any of these you can find actually in any grocery store nowadays. I'm just going to take some of the leaves off of the mint. Preferably the big ones. You want to start with having the largest ones to the smallest ones when you put them together. So we're going to just do it like this. Take one more big one. All right. So as you see, I'm laying them down one on top of the other. One thing about basil and mint and things like that, you do not want to chop it too much for the simple fact that the oils will release in it and it'll actually start turning. So have you ever seen any mint that was like a dark color once it hit your plate and things like that? It was just abused a little bit and chopped a little bit too much. I'm gonna cut that end off. But once again, I have them stacked up, and all I want to do is just roll them up as tight as possible. So can you see how it turned into little strips? And the thing is, when using mint, it's gonna add this aromatic to it because it's almost like a peppermint, the spearmint smell. You know, that freshness smell that you're gonna get from having that basil or that mint added to any kind of dish at all. All right. Now, for the sake of of the time frame, I did a little bit of TV magic and went ahead and cooked my butternut squash ahead of time. So hold on one second. And these are the spears. You see how it has the little crust right here on the end? That little roastedness give it a different little depth of dimension to it. This is my half. The best way to check to see if they're done, just take a fork, just squeeze right into it. If it pop right out, or you can push it all the way through, it's ready to go. It's hard to actually overcook them. Got my dicing. Dicers came out well as well. I mean, great as well. Have a nice little color on it, not too dark. See how you can push right through. Now, the thing is, with these, it's a natural sweetness that just came out of them. These taste so great. That thing is, nothing's really added to it but salt and pepper. Now, the one thing about it is from here, you can saute off the shallots, add the thyme, which we actually gonna do, and add it to it that way. Or you can put it in the oven and roast it off. Just because I didn't want it to have the same dimension where it's roasted on top of roasted, we're gonna saute them off. It's gonna take like maybe 2 minutes to saute them off, and we're gonna be good to go. I'm gonna turn the camera towards the stove for you. So I got a pan heating up just a little bit. Olive oil added. Y'all just want to start with a warm pan. Just using enough oil to cover the bottom of the pan. Now, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna saute off the shallots first. Then closer to the end, we're gonna hit it with the thyme because the thyme is not gonna need that long to actually cook it off. You're just gonna bring out the natural aromatics in the thyme. I'm gonna turn it down just a little bit. It's about a medium high heat. And if you ever used shallots before, if you never have used shallots before, they smell just like onions, just a slight bit sweeter. Maybe with a pinch of thyme. And that's it. It was that quick. So I only added just a tad bit of color to it. So onto my bowl here, and then we're gonna do the the slice ones as well. Little olive oil again. The pan is already hot. Once again, just tilting it to cover the bottom. Now these shallots are going to take just a tad bit longer, just because of the size of them compared to the diced ones that we just used. But it's the same steps. If y'all, this is a real class. I want to let you know if you hear somebody talking, that's my wife walking in. She did not know we're doing this right now. Hello there. All right, so the same thing, just a little bit of color on them.
Here is an answer from an America Answers contributor that I translated. Messy, confusing, chaotic.
Another pinch of thyme. Once I put that thyme in it, you can really turn it off. As soon as you put the thyme in, you're going to actually start smelling that thyme. And we're done with that. So now at this point, with the spears, you can actually go ahead and either, with that last minute, minute and a half, maybe even 3 minutes, you can go ahead and add the maple syrup to it. And it's going to become more of a glaze on it. I like mine to be a little bit more thinner, more of a drizzle. First one I'm going to do is just brush a little bit on the sides. And then I'm just going to take my brush itself and then let some more just drip off. and some of my sauteed or roasted shallots with thyme. And this is the first way. So this would be butternut squash spears. Next, the mash. All I'm going to do is just scoop. Kind of just dig into it. Now, when it comes down to the mash, there's two different ways you could do it. You could do it like this, or you could take the ones that we diced up before and just put them into a bowl once they cook. Use a masher, a blender, a mixer, anything like that. And you're going to treat it just like you would mashed potatoes. So I would say you could add butter to it, but I know we more on the health conscious side, so I wouldn't say butter. Maybe a little bit more olive oil just to finish it off with. But that maple syrup is going to act as that sweetener that we need to kind of almost symbolize sweet potatoes. And all I'm doing is just bringing it all together, almost just incorporating it all to mash. Let's use this one. This is the maple syrup that I just love right now. It's actually a ghost pepper, so it's actually infused with ghost pepper peppers. If I could open it. I got one more. There we go. So all I did was add about a tablespoon to that. The rest of our onions and thyme. So now we have the mash, butternut squash mash. Last but not least, we're going to take those diced ones. And as you see, I'm using the same ingredients, just using them in a different way, but the same exact ingredients. We're gonna use the sliced ones this time. That was about a teaspoon. And with this one, what we're gonna do is we're gonna add the mint to this one. So just a little bit of fresh mint. And these all are great sides that you can use for Thanksgiving to sub out some of the normal sweet potatoes or the yams that you normally have and things like that. Just a healthier alternative to it. So that's how we have butternut squash 3 different ways, where you have it diced, mashed, or spears. But wait, because this is Wild Wednesdays, you know we always have to remix it up a little bit. And one more thing that you guys should do with butternut squash is actually make a soup with it. So, quick thing you can do is the same way you diced up the butternut squash before, add some shallots, saute it, or add some shallots or onions, saute it up, add the butternut squash. From that, you're gonna add a little bit of vegetable stock. Let that start cooking down. It's gonna come into more of a mash or a paste. From that, you're gonna add a little bit more water and vegetable stock to thin it out. And that's a quick way you can actually make a bisque, which I actually did. So what I did was I did those same steps that I just told you. I took it out, blended it up in a blender, and then ran it through a strainer just to get any kind of pulp or any kind of impurities in it out, just to make it smooth. This time of year, I love butternut squash soup. I added some garlic, some thyme, a little bit of sage, ginger. But what else we can do to it is, you remember we was talking about those seeds earlier. What I did was I actually roasted off the seeds with a little bit of salt and pepper, olive oil, and some chipotle peppers. Just like that. And you remember the small ones, right? This is going to add a little texture and dimension to the soup itself. So I know a lot of people don't like tomato soup for a simple fact it's just too much smoothness in your mouth. But doing it like this will actually add a little bit of a dimension of crunch and bite to it. This right here is the same thing as thyme, but it's actually micro thyme. So what happens is before it actually becomes mature, they actually pull it so it's more baby and tender. Just like that. And just to kick it up a little bit, this is nothing but a creme fraiche. Or if you don't have a creme fraiche, which is more of a French sour cream, you can always just use sour cream. You can take sour cream, put a splash of water just to thin it out just a little bit. And this right here is a butternut squash soup. So, as you see, let me turn so you can see them. Butternut squash, instead of 3 ways, we did it 4 ways. You have your butternut squash spears, your mash, your dice, and then we also turned it into a soup. What y'all think?
Reggie, you have outdone yourself. I'm sitting here saying, wow, the comments are coming in just great. This was more than what I expected. I think you have officially replaced my mashed potatoes.
Thank you, thank you.
Oh my
It's
goodness.
always it's always good to actually just give you something a little bit familiar, but at the same time a little bit different at the same time. Um, I know I have picky kids at home, and I always have to come up with some new modifications to get them to eat their vegetables or just to try something new. They know in my house, if I make something and they never had it, they got to at least try it
Mm.
because you never know if you like it or not until you try it, and then from that you could try it 3 different times because I mean you can have it 3 different ways and it might taste different to you each time. So be out there and actually just try foods. There's more out there besides turkey on Thanksgiving and yams and sweet potatoes and hog maws and collard greens. All right, there's kale out there. There's turnip, mustard greens. One of my favorite greens is actually beets. So it's actually the leaves of the beets, and you treat
Whoa.
them the same way you would with collards, but they actually are one more tender, and they're a slight bit sweeter.
Okay. Well, we need to do a part two because you just said something there trying to take away my collard greens. So we need to test you out on that one. You guys, how did you enjoy this? Do you have any questions about anything that Reggie presented to us? I didn't see questions, just wonderful comments about how wonderful the food looks and how we all are going to try at least one or two versions of this. I'm really intrigued. Yes, I think we need a part two, Perlene. We are not having Wow Wednesday next month. However, I may have to have a conversation offline with Reggie to see if he's available sometime in December before the thick of the holidays to have a part two of something. Yes, someone else said they usually boil their butternut squash. I was thinking that as well. You didn't boil any of this, correct?
I did not boil any of it.
Okay.
The only thing that came close to being boiled was actually the soup itself. A lot of times when you boil, it just you're taking away from the flavor instead of enhancing the flavor. So if you
Okay.
can try to saute it or roast it off or bake it off and things like that to add more depth into it instead of it just being more plain. And I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings by saying that,
Okay.
but just to bring it up another level. That's just one of those things that we do as chefs. We try to heighten everything that we actually make.
No, that makes sense. Someone did ask, can we use dry thyme and how much of the thyme?
If you're using dry thyme, I would say use half of the measurements that is actually calling for. A lot of times the dry thyme would need to be almost softened a little bit. So, hey, you know what? Actually do this. With the dried thyme, actually put it within the maple syrup itself, put it on the stove and let it just kind of put it on low heat just so it warms up. That way it'll actually soften up a little bit before you actually add it in because just putting the dry thyme in is going to cut your throat up.
Okay. So you're saying let it saute a little bit in the maple.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, soften it. Is that a technique? Because I use a lot of dry thyme because it's just
If you're using it, because I mean, like with dry time, if you put it into a pan and you're gonna have it where it's moisture in it, then it's gonna soften on its own. But if you're just using it the way I did with this one, where it was just a sprinkle on top, if you're gonna saute it off, just saute it a little bit on a lower heat, just so it can cook down a little bit. That makes sense.
Yeah, you're blowing our mind. Somebody said, "Come on, Reggie. You know that's church talk." Said, "Bring it on, Reggie. You talking that good talk. You dropping that knowledge," as the young people say.
There you go.
Yes, very good. I am going to go back and look at the recording because you gave some helpful tips, particularly around seasonings. Anything else you want to emphasize? You gave us some very good info.
Um, yes, you don't have to use a lot of seasonings that has sodium base.
Mhm.
You can always bring out natural flavors, and you want to be able to taste the food, so you know what it actually tastes like compared to just covering it in. I know we don't have any seasonal in our cabinets, do we? Yeah.
What?
No, we don't need no seasonal in our cabinets. Because 9 out of 10 times, if you look at the back of the seasonal, you probably got all that in your cabinet already. Because you want to cut back on how much salt you use, and you want to be able to taste the food. A lot of times, we like to just say we like food that has flavor or heavily seasoned,
Mm-hmm.
but we just gotta get out of that mindset and learn how to actually taste the food for what it is, and then adjust according to your taste. But we also on a lifestyle change, so we gotta learn that because we think we want it, we really don't need it. And after not having it for a few days or weeks or months, you really don't miss it. Me and my
Okay.
wife, we actually did this diet one time or lifestyle change where we actually just cut out as much sugar as possible out of our diet. And what happened was when we ate a banana, you could taste the natural sweetness and how sweet a banana is, or how sweet pineapple is, and things like that. And we actually started to appreciate the food more.
Mm. Okay. So you may have answered this. Deborah did ask, what do you suggest other than the seasoned salt? I guess you're saying fresh, not herbs. Is that what you're saying?
Fresh herbs, because I mean nowadays you can find fresh herbs pretty much anywhere. If you're mobile, please go out to the Cash Farmers Market. Um, Fresh herbs are pretty cheap nowadays. And then a lot of times what you can do is, I know you said that you use a lot of dried
Mm-hmm.
herbs and things like that, but what we actually do here, uh, if you can see up there, our leftover herbs that we don't use, we actually just hang them and let them air dry. So
Okay.
now we have natural dry herbs instead of it sitting in the container, and you don't know how long it's been sitting in that container.
I see. I'm a little tired. I'm gonna take one small change at a time. That's what we teach our clients to make
That's right.
small.
It's nothing but baby steps. It's not a marathon. I mean, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yes. Deborah said her grandson loves seasoned salt on his whole homemade French fries. How can I try changing this?
All right. I don't have anybody near their kitchen right now.
Uh-huh.
Go and get the seasoned salt.
Oh, you're gonna call me. I have different
I'm
versions.
calling you out.
Okay. You're gonna Okay, I have red pepper seasoned salt, Lowry's.
Lowry's. Okay.
Yes.
What's in it?
You're shaming me. Oh my goodness. The very first ingredient it says salt, spices, including Tabasco brand dry seasoning, in parentheses, aged red pepper, sugar, cornstarch, maltodextrin, vinegar powder, natural flavors, citric acid, silicon dioxide. It said prevents caking, and paprika ola dressing for color. Oh God, this is killing me.
Okay, so
Did you
out of
guys
all
hear that?
that, yeah,
Okay.
out of all that, what I heard was it's a lot of salt.
I know.
There's
Deborah
some
said, Lord
factory
help me.
chemicals in there,
Yeah.
some paprika, and some red pepper. So an easy way to fix that for your you say grandson or your son? Grandson.
Grandson.
Let's do salt, but not that much salt.
Okay.
And another thing I do is I use kosher salt instead of iodine salt. Iodine salt we should never really use. It's factory made. It's not a natural salt, and with it being so fine, it's just horrible for you. I use a kosher salt or a flake salt or a sea salt is so much better. Then use paprika, crushed red, onion powder, garlic powder. And if you want to add something like some dried thyme or dry rosemary, something like that, but I think he would be fine if you did salt, paprika, crushed red, garlic powder, onion powder. You see, I'm saying garlic powder and onion powder. I'm not saying garlic salt.
Yeah.
Make sure we're using the powder, not the salt, because we don't need to add any more sodium than it's already the salt that we're using. But what I would recommend doing is adding everything but the salt first, and then slowly add in the salt.
Okay. And the paprika, because he's probably looking for that color of that seasoned salt.
Correct.
So that's how you trick him, Deborah.
Mm-hmm.
Put the paprika on there. He won't know the difference.
Well, and Reggie, I mean, honestly, you can actually have him make it, or you make it with him, and he's gonna actually have almost an ownership of it because it's gonna feel like he's more of a chef with it because he's making homemade fries already. So now he's making his own seasoning to go with it. It's gonna make him want to brag to his friends, like, "Yeah, I'm really chefing it up over here."
Right.
You're gonna try to salt band and everything, you know.
That's wonderful. Okay, well, it's interesting that this version it's called red pepper seasoned salt, and it has a caption, liven up your French fries. So the power of persuasion. Well, wonderful. We have enjoyed this. Again, everyone, let's thank Chef Reggie for another great presentation. We've learned a lot. We love how you combine the cooking with the information. This will be available on our YouTube channel. Just put in the search bar Diabetes Association of Atlanta, and this will be available within the next 48 hours. And all of our past presentations are out there as well. Right now, we are not scheduled for December. If that changes, you will receive an email. Otherwise, we'll be back the first of the year in January. So thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you possibly in the new year. Okay, Chef Reggie,
right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to y'all.
Same to you. Happy Thanksgiving, you guys.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you.